Good evening, everyone. Vox Day from voxday.blogspot.com. Yes, I did read Rush's How to Destroy the Establishment Media. In fact, that's what we're talking about tonight, and that's why that's why I decided that that would be the subject tonight. We'll give it a few minutes, not a few minutes, we'll give it a minute or so for people to start logging on, saying hey. But thanks for tuning in. It was kind of fun last night to see that 1,500 people showed up. I was kind of I was kind of amazed. I was expecting 300 or something. So yeah, thanks for the compliment. I picked it up when I was in Roma a few summers ago. Deadlifts with the Dark Lord. Yeah, I really do need to do more deadlifts and whatnot. I'm glad you guys are enjoying these scopes. I actually find that I enjoy doing them. I'm not, this is not my medium. I've never been a video guy. I never had any desire to be a media whore. But this is just a great way of communicating. It's a great way of being able to quickly and easily get a message out. I tend to prefer writing, obviously, but this is a good alternative, and certainly it's a good way to reach people. So let's talk about the media. Specifically, let's talk about the opposition media. I was reading a column on Sports Illustrated the other day, and it was by Peter King. He's a longtime NFL reporter. Great sports reporter. I mean, he's probably one of the better sports reporters out there. Been around for a long time. And like most sports reporters today, he's actually more liberal than your average mainstream reporter. It seems like the sports guys need to sort of prove that they are in line and SJWs just like the rest of them. It was kind of amazing how on ESPN they actually had 6 different stories on the travel ban, which has nothing to do with anything they're supposed to be covering. But they look for a way to signal their left-wing ideology whenever they can. Now, what was interesting, what was very interesting when I was reading the column, is Monday Morning Quarterback column. It was a good column, mostly about the Falcons, Patriots, that kind of thing. But what struck me was at the bottom, he usually likes to occasionally sort of work in a little liberal slant on a current event. But the one that he chose was a comment by Steve Bannon that you haven't seen very much made of in the media. And he was taking exception to the fact that Bannon had referred to the opposition media. And it was the usual appeal to, but the press is the fourth estate, and the press has a duty and an obligation, and therefore the White House and the Trump administration must respect the position of the fourth estate and the First Amendment and yada yada yada, all that sort of usual nonsense. And the reason that it's nonsense is because what Peter King was talking about in classic SJW fashion is the ideal of the media, the way that people conceived of the media being, and yet the media does not behave like that in any way, shape, or form. The media has been absolutely, completely sold out for the Democratic Party since Jimmy Carter, that I personally can recall. And it's gotten worse, and it's gotten worse, and it's gotten worse over time, until it's reached the point now where the media, for the most part, what Mike Cernovich calls the hoax media, is regularly reporting news that is absolutely false, constantly reporting things that are not true, constantly shading the truth and being dishonest and presenting stories that are only in line with their preconceived narrative rather than reporting the actual news. Now, I have a lot of experience of this. what a lot of you may not realize is that I'm not speaking in theory here. I'm a former nationally syndicated columnist. My columns have appeared in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and 13 other newspapers around the USA. Furthermore, San Jose Mercury News. In fact, I'm probably one of the only authors you've ever seen or ever encountered who's actually been nationally syndicated 3 times. Now, the the third time was an abysmal failure. I think the Dallas Morning News was the only one that had picked it up. But the interesting thing that I discovered was that as bad as the bias looked from the outside, it was actually much, much worse from the inside. And I can guarantee you the editorial editor, the editors of the op-ed page, the opinion editorial editors, they are absolutely gatekeepers guarding access to that page like Smog the Dragon guarding gold. They are absolutely terrified about letting anyone get on that page who is not going to back up their left-wing narrative. For example, I was one of the most popular columnists at the St. Paul Pioneer Press. I was a tech columnist. And I was good. I mean, frankly, I was better than anyone there. And in fact, I was the 6th, in 113 years, I was the 6th columnist ever nationally syndicated from that newspaper. And yet, when I talked to them, there's a empty slot on the editorial page. The only conservative had retired. And so I thought, hey, perfect, I'd like to do that, I could do that. So I sent in a couple of sample columns, and they even said, hey, your stuff is great, we love your stuff, but we can't let you on the editorial page. You're too libertarian. Okay, so I didn't complain. I was perfectly happy, doing my game and technology stuff. But the fact is, they were behind the scenes. They're completely open about their bias. Okay, and so now here's what's interesting. I was reading Peter Grant's blog. Peter Grant is a really great writer. We published a couple of his books at Castelli House. Actually, technically, we only published the one right now, but we're publishing some more in audiobook and print soon. And he's got a great Western called Brings the Lightning. Check it out if you like Westerns. Old style, old school Westerns. But he had a thing on his blog today, and somebody went in and did the math, and it turns out that there are only 232 media executives who control the media narrative. Okay, 232 people. I mean, there's more people in Congress. So 277 million Americans have their opinions being led. That's where they get the term opinion leaders. Their opinions are being led by 232 people. And these are the people like that guy that I mentioned, the guy guarding the editorial page. And so that's why we have this narrative that is constantly pushed upon us. These ideas. And what's interesting is that because there's so few of them, and because the people that work for them follow them in such a lockstep, it's very, very simple to watch what their narrative is as the time goes on. You can see them switch positions very, very rapidly, and so it's not at all difficult to see how they are trying to, like somebody just said, they manufacture this fake consensus. The narrative is produced from that, and then they push it out, and then pretty soon, you see all the people who think they're informed, who think that they know what's going on, and but they don't. They're actually misinformed. They're not informed. They're misinformed. They're not educated. They're maleducated. However, technology is really beginning to cut into them. They're losing a lot of business. I was reading an article, and advertising revenues for the media have declined, for print media, have declined by 60%. Okay, their business model is completely failing. That's why they're dependent on people like Slim from Mexico, who now owns the New York Times. They're dependent on Bezos because the Washington Post can't make it go anymore. The Guardian, it's really interesting. They have this huge fund, like $1 billion endowment, and they have burned through something like 65–70% of it in the past something like 4 or 5 years alone. They're desperate. They're dying. And so we can help them do that. I should also mention that I was going to say, I just read today that the Wall Street Journal is laying off employees in Asia and Europe. And these layoffs are the second round of cuts in the last 3 months. Okay? So they are in horrible shape. So they're pretending that they are driving our opinions and that sort of thing, but people are not listening to them anymore. I mean, that's why they all told us that Brexit could never pass. They all told us that Donald Trump could never win. Now they're saying that Marine Le Pen can't possibly win and the Front National can't possibly win, while the guy that they expect to win is now caught up in a huge scandal because he arranged for his wife and his kids to get paid about €1 million with jobs that may or may not have been fake. And so, I mean, they run around saying that the alt-right are Nazis. I'm alt-right. I'm not a Nazi. I was just talking, what was it, 3 days ago with the head of one of Israel's political parties, Moshe Feiglin. I was just exchanging email about a couple hours ago with Martin Van Creveld, one of our best authors, one of the greatest military historians and military strategists in the world. He's an Israeli. Needless to say, he's not running around with Nazis. Now, I don't care about people calling me that because it's so obviously false that it's very easy to demonstrate. And that's why, when the New York Times when they interview me, when Politico or whoever else interviews me, they do not quote me because they cannot maintain the narrative. But that gets to the point. Let's get to Rush's column. If you haven't read his column, go to Return of Kings and read Rush's column on destroying the mainstream media. Now, he has 3 rules. And keep in mind, this is somebody who knows the media well. This is somebody who not only encountered the media, but was the subject of the most abusive media witch hunt I've ever seen. And so, he had people from England, people from Germany, literally flying to his parents' house and camping outside his house and taking pictures. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so his rules is, number 1, do not give them content. When they call us up and they want to interview us and stuff, it's because they want us to play dancing monkey. It's because they want us to play the target. And the more that we deny them that, I got an email from another newspaper, maybe it was the New York Times guy. Anyhow, he said, do you have Stefan Molyneux's contacts? And I had the privilege of saying, I do. But he's not going to talk to you because he doesn't talk to the media at all. Molyneux never gives them anything. I do not talk to them anymore after I gave a telephone interview to Wired, and she completely ignored absolutely everything that was related to the subject and tried to create this narrative that I was an African-hating racist. And so, it was just amazing to me that someone would go to those lengths to try to disqualify someone in a story that was about something that was totally unrelated. And so after that, I just said no. I do not do phone interviews. I do not do television interviews. I got an offer today to go to some conference thing and speak there. I'm not going to do that. Now maybe I should do what Stefan says. Maybe I should do what Rush says. Don't give them content. Don't even agree to written interviews. And frankly, I'm kind of leaning towards that myself now, because they don't use my answers anyhow. They ask the questions, I send them the answers, but because my answers don't fit their narrative, then they just quickly brush aside and pretend it never happened. And so The second point Roosh has is don't give them views. And here's where I want to get into how we can actually destroy the opposition media. And what I recommend, when I'm doing a link now, what I've learned to do is first I take the story and I put it up on archive.is or archive.today, and then I link to that. That serves two purposes. Number one, it prevents them from changing the story that I'm linking to. I've seen it happen many times, especially when you're busting someone on something. They'll quickly change it. And so what you have to learn to do is before you tweet it, before you link it, before you do any of that stuff, make sure you archive it. Now here's where we can really hit them hard. And if there's anybody out there who's connected with the Drudge Report, they should pass this idea along to them. And this is something we're going to be doing with InfoGalactic. We're going to launch InfoGalactic News pretty soon. And it's going to be similar to the Drudge Report. It's going to be updated more often. Not going to be quite as many headlines. We're going to keep it to 12. But what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of linking the top stories to those media sites, we're going to put them on archive, and then we're going to link to them there, all automatically. And so what we're going to do is, as much as we build up, we're going to keep building things up, but we are never going to give them any links. We're going to slowly strangle them. And that's why I'd like to see the Drudge Report do it, because the Drudge Report, they had something like 1.7 billion views the previous month. Now, if you figure that each person who goes to the Drudge Report clicks on, let's say, 3 links, it's probably more, but let's say 3 links. Okay, so suddenly you're talking about, that's 1.7, you're talking about 5.1 billion links that go to the opposition media, and that generates hits for them, that generates advertising and all that sort of thing. Well, simply by using archive links, the Drudge Report alone can deny the opposition media over 5 billion links per month, hits per month. Okay, they're already dying. If they get hit like that, it's going to take some of them under. And if all of us who have blogs, if all of us who pass on links via email, if all of you guys, I don't know how many people are here. It says there's like 313 at the moment, but let's say that there's no. The Drudge Report has not started doing this. This is just an idea I came up with. But if all of us simply refuse to stop linking directly to them, so that when we're directing our friends and family and whoever to go to stuff, don't direct them to their sites. Archive it, send the link there. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long at all. And this is something that the left tries to do this too. I mean, it's always funny because whenever they're trying to get on my case about something, they will always use this sort of, I don't even know what it's called, but it's some sort of little redirector thing to deny you the credit for it or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I've never paid any attention because, frankly, I don't really care that much what my traffic is. It has gone up far more than I ever imagined it would be. So anyhow, but yeah, so if anybody knows anybody at Drudge, I would strongly suggest recommending this to them. Because we're in a cultural war. The opposition media is the enemy, and this is one way that we can deny them the oxygen that they breathe. And so, they're doing it to us. They're constantly doing it to us. Today, one of my readers let me know that Gab was being blocked by a Blue Shield or something, some semantic virus program. And so they were working for the government, and they couldn't access Gab, and it said it was blocked because it was violent and racist, which is ridiculous. There is less racism and less violence on Gab than there is on Twitter. There is probably 2 orders of magnitude, maybe 3 orders of magnitude less. And yet, what you've got is you've got SJWs getting in there and trying to deny us access and attention. So we're just going to, like I advise in my book, SJWs Always Lie, we're just turning it around. We're just using their tactics against them, but we hit harder. And so, Apple also screwed Gab on the app and has been keeping them out of the Apple Store, which is, again, another reason why we need replacements for Apple. We need replacements for every bit of, not just the media, but technology as well. And we're doing that. If you're not familiar with Infogalactic, check out infogalactic.com. We forked Wikipedia, and we're going to be replacing Wikipedia entirely. In 3 years, we're going to pass it up. Gab is going to pass up Twitter, and you're going to see more and more of these what we call alt tech companies coming up, growing, and taking big bites out of these competitors. How do we archive? It's very simple. Go copy the link, then go to archive.is or archive.today, and then just paste the link in, and then it will save everything. It'll save the text, the pictures, everything, and then it'll give you a URL up at the top that you can then use as a replacement. Then Ruch's third point was lower their social status. Frankly, journalists and the media are already pretty low social status, so I don't really know how that would work. But Ruch was, he's really good about this, and he's really onto something here, because he's the only person I know who has really gone in and taken on the media directly. He wrote about it in his book, what had happened was I'd called him up and said, hey, you need to come up with a plan here because they're hammering you. And he said, yeah, I know. He was stressed out and all that sort of thing. And so I told him, I said, look, hold a press conference. They're not going to stop coming after you. The only way they will stop coming after you is if you turn on them and make the whole experience more painful for them than it is for you. And so he said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So he went, got a room at a hotel, invited all the media that was chasing him to come there. And of course, they were kind of suspicious. And his performance was fantastic. If you get a chance, look up Ruch's press conference on YouTube, and it's a master class in turning the media, turning their own guns on himself, or turning their own guns on them. And so it was, he did not back down at all. They kept trying to come at him, saying, well, what about this? And he was just going, they're saying, well, you once said this. And he said, what are you doing here? You're from Germany. Hundreds of women were just sexually assaulted in Cologne, and you didn't want to cover it. You don't want to talk about it. You want to come here and talk to me about things that never happened. And he said, how do you justify that? And it was hilarious because the reporter was just, she wanted to dig a hole and crawl into it. And it didn't go on very long. The press conference did not go on very long because they just wanted to get the hell out of there. And not only did they get out of there, but they left. They left him alone. He drove him off. So anyhow, so that's it for tonight. Stop by the blog when you get a chance, voxday.blogspot.com. And like I said, you might want to check out Peter Grant's books, Brings the Lightning, fantastic Western. And if you've got any questions, stop by the blog, leave a comment, shoot me the questions there. And as far as the Supreme Court choice goes, we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. So have a good evening, and let's keep winning.